Rob, we're recording this presentation and I may post it on YouTube. Do I have your permission?
Sure.
All right, well, thank you. So we got that out of the way. Rob is my guest artist this evening, Rob Fornell. I've known Rob for many years and he's remained committed to his focus on ceramics of the Asian aesthetic, mainly Japanese teaware, traditional and contemporary. Rob has established quite a name for himself um, in this arena, but he's not limited his artistic expression. He's pushed beyond the boundaries to create beautiful works of abstraction and deep content as well. He's curated exhibitions at home and abroad, and his work is widely exhibited internationally and found in many prestigious collections, including the New York State Alfred University Museum's permanent collection, which I think is maybe most recent. So let's welcome Rob Fornell and let him tell his story. Rob?
Evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Everybody hear me?
Yes. Yay.
Okay. Glad we got that out of the way, Ken. Just briefly, I started making pots in high school back in Minnesota and was kind of embedded in the Warren McKenzie, Mingay soda aesthetic from the beginning. And then I came out to Seattle to go to grad school. And then I took a trip to Japan, just a 6-week trip traveling around in the late 80s and ended up moving there for about 7 years. I lived there. And I've made a lot of different work, a variety of genres and functions, just for the sake of having something fairly concise to talk about. I decided to focus primarily on tea bowls, along with some water containers for tea ceremony. And then at the end, there's some pieces, more kind of sculptural, that I had in a show in New York, a solo show in New York, just about a year ago. So kind of my introduction to teaware was, I was in the Green Gallery in Nagoya a number of years ago, and chatting with the ladies on the gallery floor, and I told them I was doing ceramics, and then they very graciously introduced me to the owner of the gallery. He was a wealthy businessman, and he took me back into his office, and he had a works by National Living Treasures. He showed me, and then he asked if I'd ever heard of Kitakawa Handeshi, and I said, no, I've never heard of him. And he told me his story and made a phone call. He said, do you have a few hours? And I said, sure. And he made a phone call to the museum over in Tsu, which is on the opposite side of the bay from Nagoya. And there was a museum there. And they showed me the premier piece of Handeshi. And Handeshi actually was a banker. He wasn't a potter by trade, but a banker working in this town of Tsu. And he knew a lot of the Momoyama revivalists. He knew Kato Tokuro, he knew Arakawa Toyozo, Miwa Kyusetsu down in Hagi, Kaneshige and Bizen. And they had a kind of a group get together every once in a while and have a meeting. And they would talk about what kind of work they were doing. And at that time, most of them were digging shards from old kill sites. And Handesh told them that, this is all the wrong way. You're making pots off rejects, off broken work, and you need to push yourself and expand yourself. So he was really instrumental in kind of getting the Momoyama revivalists on track. And here's the piece I saw. It's called Akebono, or Morning Light. It's a very simple piece with a white slip underneath and a glaze on top. Very, very beautiful piece though. And my next encounter with kind of the world of tea, this is much more contemporary, was Tsujimura Shiro, who is a potter living outside of Nara. And he really, I think, really kind of rocked my world, shook it as far as thinking about how to work with clay. Not necessarily the form so much, but the process. And he fires a lot of electric kilns. He throws charcoal in it. He fires anagama with waste oil, throwing ash in. So while his work is pretty traditional in its, roots and appearance process, and I met him in 2000, and then I met him again in 2011. Jeff Shapiro put together a T-Bowl workshop at Harvard, and Jeff invited me out. So it was Richard Milgram and Tsujimura Shiro and Suzuki Goro. This is at Tsujimura's house in Nara that he and his wife built from recycled wood from bridges that they were tearing down. And here's a number of years ago, 20 years ago now, firing one of his anagamas. They were very small, about 8 feet, 9 feet long, with the rotary oil burner down below. And then they would pull some brick out of the top and throw ash in. And here's one of his pieces. I'm kind of starting out with Edo style bowls, which are quite traditional, originating in Korea. It's a simple piece, just an ash glaze. And so this is leading into my work. This is a piece that I fired last year. I've been doing some raw firing. It's red clay, white slip, ash glaze on top, single fired. And these are all buncheong style work from Korea, the slip work. I did a show there in 2011 that I was really impressed by the work I saw other Korean potters I was showing with. So I've kind of focused on that. It's a great start for T-bowls, I think, because it's pretty rooted. The origin of a lot of the Japanese ware comes out of Korea. So this is a piece out of the Schaller Gallery. Again, white slip, really rough clay, single fired. This is a hakeme. Looks like our screen is. You guys seen that okay? The frame on the screen is not quite aligned. Is that, you guys reading that okay or not?
Looks great at my end.
Okay, all right. So this is a hakeme with just a straw brush I used, coat it with slip, and then do a quick wipe through and then shake the slip down across the brushwork. If anybody's got any questions on anything, anytime, just call them out. It's another piece similar to the one a couple frames ago.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So it's just pure slip over like a darker clay?
Right.
Okay, so the slip is from just white ball clay?
Pardon me?
What is the slip made from? Just like white ball clay or porcelain or?
No, the slip is, I use a Helmer kaolin.
Okay.
Like I'll throw a handful of soda spar in just to get it to adhere to the clay body a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty simple. Like 90-10. I don't weigh it out. I just throw the Helmer in and then I pick a scoop of feldspar and mix it up. So.
And the same thing when you were talking about ash glazes, is it just pure ash? Or are you putting other stuff?
No, it's a blend of
okay.
ash and feldspar and
okay.
Little ball clay to keep it from settling down too much.
Okay.
Real simple.
Thank you.
Yep.
They're gorgeous.
Thank you. Here's another one. Actually, I just sold this to a guy down in LA a couple months ago. This one I aged. Like Sujimura talked about the whole concept of aging, because I was wandering around his property and he had tea bowls and pots in the bushes, and just, I said, and I asked him, are you throwing those away? He said, no, I'm aging them. So, and this one sat up on top of my kiln for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years above the door, and it got a little smoky and aged. So then I cleaned it up, and it turned out kind of nice. This is the one with again, a slip, but I put a little iron in the slip. So it's got a kind of a light cherry cast to it. Those are all thrown on a kick wheel. Single fired again. And here's one lately I've been using a really dark, a cone, actually it's a cone 6 clay body that comes out of clay art, that I blend in some local clay up here in sand. And I get pretty good coloration out of that, much better than the earlier pieces. So when you're reduction fire these, and if you have a really dark, heavy iron bearing clay underneath, and you can fire it depending on the thickness of the slip, where you'll be pulling the iron from the clay body into the slip, and you'll get these peach and pink halos and tones coming through.
So are you firing at cone 6, or are you firing it higher than that?
No, I fired about 8 or 9.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. So it's a bit overfired then, as far as the body's concerned.
Well, yeah, but like I said, I'm mixing other things into it. So I'm plus some sand. I'm raising the firing temp of the clay body. So
okay.
And I don't really have many issues with, well, none with bloating. Sometimes I get a little warping on some larger slab pieces, but generally the T-bowls are fine.
Thanks.
The next kind of grouping is some black iron pieces I've been working on. This is an older piece with a black iron glaze underneath, and then I mixed up it's an Arabo glaze, which is ochre and ash and a little clay again to hold it all together. And traditionally, the Arabo fired by itself is kind of a mustard yellow. It's a pretty rough glaze. It tends to kind of beat up a little bit. And I discovered when I put it on this black glaze and fired it in oxidation, the Arabo goes silver. So I've been playing around with that. This is electric fired about cone 7 or so, maybe 8. And here's just the black iron glaze by itself on a pinch pot. Here is the black iron with the Arabo, multiple fast reduction, and then into a sagger. I packed it full of charcoal and some wood, and took the bottom half of my kiln for the sagger, and then regular stacking reduction pots on top. That again, you get kind of a strange atmosphere inside with the sagger roaring underneath, and the reduction pots, you can get some interesting effects on those as well. So here's another one. This is a hikidashi, and even the silver is more pronounced with the black and the Arabo.
Rob, can you explain hikidashi?
Okay, the hikidashi I electric fire. I've got a teach that it holds probably, I don't know, 6 or in sake cups or so. And I started out, I just put the work in there, turn both the elements on high, and about 6 hours later, the cone 8, and I open the lid and start pulling the work out. And depending on what I'm after, sometimes I'll wait a bit and then reduce in sawdust. Other pots I don't do any reduction. And then as far as pulling them out of the sawdust, like you'll see later, the rebate can go green or a metallic turquoise or a metallic red, depending on the atmosphere inside the reduction can. And the silvers, I found, if I don't quench them out of the reduction cans, that silver tends to hold. Otherwise, it just washes off. So, a recent.
So this one was reduced then?
This was reduced, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So the hikidashi is basically high fire raku.
Right.
Yeah.
The cone 8 raku, basically.
Okay.
And in Japan, they don't. The hikidashi they do. I've got a good friend, Higashida Shigemasa. He does a lot of it. They don't reduce anything. They just pull it out and let it air cool.
Have you seen that metallic? I've seen something online where they take it out really hot and put it in water, or put water in it, and then it bursts into these kind of more metallics.
Yeah, I've seen that some Chinese potters are doing the tenmo that way. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
Is that just water they put in? Does it do the same kind of reduction thing, or is it just quenching?
I'm not certain. Ken, you might know. You've spent some time in China.
I wish I knew.
Yeah.
I've seen the video as well, and it just astounds me.
Right.
I own one of those pieces.
Uh-huh.
Very lucky it was gifted to me, but I don't know the process.
I'm pretty sure it's just water, but it might be the fast cooling that brings out the really bright colors. I don't know.
There's probably some pin glaze, which brings it about too. I don't know.
But with the hikidashi, do you have things break more because you're pulling? There's such a drastic change in temperature.
Surprisingly not. I've pulled pieces out where the walls are, a couple inches thick, and I don't have any exploding, or it's really dramatic though, because I'll pull them out and then reduce them and then put them from the reduction cans into water, and they're just screaming and fighting, kind of fighting between these two worlds. It's pretty dramatic. I'll show you a couple.
Do you do them pretty thick? Because maybe thin would crack more.
Actually, you'd think that thinner would be better, because then they'd cool a little bit more evenly than the thick forms, and the clay wouldn't be as stressed out. But I haven't had any issues with cracking, really.
That's
but
great.
The body that you're using is fairly coarse, though, isn't it?
It's pretty open, yeah.
Yeah. That's probably also what helps.
Yeah, that helps. But Russell, I've used some clay bodies that aren't really all that open, and some pretty block-like forms, and I haven't had any issues. So
cool.
Yeah,
I've got a couple actually.
Yeah.
Of these, and that's a solid chunk of clay. This thing is heavy. It's a sake cup.
Yeah, right.
It's great.
Well, here's another one. This is a pinch piece with the a hikidashi with the black and the Irabo glaze on. And let me show you the foot on this. It's a little different. They say that the spirit of the potter is revealed in how the foot is carved on a tea bowl. And part of the tea ceremony is when the host assembles the dogu, or the pieces that they're going to use for the ceremony. Is a lot of it depends on the season, but lot of it is to encourage conversation amongst the participants in the tea ceremony. So this is kind of a little, I don't know what you'd call it. I'm maybe trolling the tea people here, being my bad self. So I just thought, why not do a kind of a contemporary foot on this really traditional bowl? So
I remember when you posted that. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
it was hilarious.
So just I took a plastic lid and pulled a mold off, a plaster mold, and just a press mold base on this then that I attach. And actually I make probably, as far as teaware and even mizusashi, maybe about half of what I make in tubes. And then I've got a lot of freedom to form it because there's no base and move the clay around. So, well, that skekodai, or attached base, is what this is. There's another one pretty recent. Again, Hikidashi black. Great deep metallic black surface on these. It's kind of hard to catch, but really a wonderful surface. There's this little more normal foot carved on this. And I fire it, most of my teaware is fired in socket cups. I wad it up and keeps, if I get any glaze runs, or plus I like the little wad marks you get sometimes. So this is moving on, a Shino piece. These are pretty old. These are probably about 15 years old. I think it was a case beer Shino, and I used this clay Soldate 60 that came out of California that I'd sand down pretty heavily, and just do some quick gestural iron brushwork underneath. So playing around with the glaze spaces vis-a-vis unglazed windows and creating some pattern surface that way. So these are thrown, and then I carve away portions of the surface where I'd get more pinholing where the clay has been carved away. A little different form here. And the soda ash, of course, in the glaze gives a little flashing onto the clay body. I tend to work the glazes. I like to work them like, quote unquote, too thick or too thin, kind of work the extremes. And I like find a glaze, I'll mix it up, and I'll mix it thin, mix it thick, underfire it, overfire it, try to figure out what it wants to say. And if it's something that I think, works with me, then we'll keep working on it. So then I was doing some work, and that was the previous images were Shino, but there's what they call Nezumi Shino, which is a gray Shino in Japan. And I was working, trying to do some work like that. And it's basically, it's mixed up and then covered with a Shino glaze on top. And I had the good fortune to make a mistake in my oxide mix and came up with this. I call it black Shino, which is kind of an oxymoron because in Japan, Shinos are always snow white, but it's really an interesting glaze. I worked with it for a number of years. And then I tend to not be a good record keeper, detriment, and I lost the oxide formulation for a number of years. And actually only last summer did I spent a couple, 3 months working on it, and I came up with something that was pretty similar to the original. So
stunning.
This I just trailed it, and I'm playing with the unglazed again versus the glaze. These some have a real kind of landscape look to them, almost like mountains and stars and the moon, and they're just real, in Japanese, they say keski or scenery. They got a lot going on. So.
The last one, the part that was the oxides, is really has a lot of texture. Is
Right.
that from the clay, or that is just really
well
up oxides?
The way it is first I glaze them, and then I put the oxide wash all over the glazed area, and then I reglaze them with the top. So it's like a sandwich.
Ah, okay. So there's glaze under that under the dark, and
right.
then under the light, and just kind of.
Right.
Cool.
Here's one just random trailing. There's a piece from last summer. And then the Shino glaze I use is a spodumene based. And I got a sack of domestic spodumene that came from, I think, someplace in the and it had a fair amount of iron in it. So when I mixed it up and fired it, it was orange rather than creamy white. So I kind of did a series of these more orangey pieces. And it pulls this really nice brown up here at the rim, which I like too. So. These are all wheel thrown. Again, fired to like cone 8, 9. And I look at my T-ware as it's being kind of, I mean, the ideas and the surfaces definitely come out of Japan, but they've been, I think, pretty thoroughly digested and reinterpreted as far as what I'm after. And this next series originates from Hagiware down in Western Japan, which is really white with, they put a black, pretty refractory wash under parts of the tea bowl. And so you'll have this contrast of black and white. They use an ash base. These aren't ash bases. This is again, the black glaze that I do with the hickey dashi, and then the white on top. Again, this is a hand-built piece. I make a lot of work with, I'll take plugs of clay and then pierce them with a dowel rod, go all the way through and roll out these tubes, and then I'll stretch them out from the inside and facet them, alter them, put a base on later. Well, this piece was made that same way. It's a very fast way of working.
A gorgeous piece.
Thank you. The thing I like about this glaze combination is it's so varied. It can be white, it can be black, it can be, these pink, peachy tones. And it's got some titanium dioxide in it. So if you get some oxidation, or there's black glaze pieces in proximity, it'll pick up the iron and it'll blush. Reduction will turn it pink as well. This is another one, same glaze. It was fired in electric kiln. And I took some like black glaze test tiles and ringed it around the piece so the black would flash onto this piece, giving it its color.
Are those were those drips on there of the glaze dripping down, or was it like slip over the clay, the bottom where it's...
The glaze is really thick and it just runs
really
down.
And it looks a little orange. Is that the other stuff with the spodumene?
No, that's the flashing from the black glaze pots around it.
Goes orange. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I want.
This glaze is just, it's got a lot of variation. Here's another one. You can see, you know, where it's left black, you'll get some flashing pink up the side, as well as over in here. Can you see my cursor at all, Ken, or not?
Yes.
Okay. Again, it's sensitive to temperature too. This is fired a little cooler, so it's, you know, the glaze is sintered and melted, but it's not moving around at all. And I fired this, I've got a little small T-bolt kiln that holds about 6 T-bolts gas reduction. And I used to get some great pieces out of it, but then I had my, I got my gas pressure bumped up to 2 PSI. So now it doesn't fire, it's just, everything is like boring white. I don't get any of these microclimates inside the kiln anymore. So I'm gonna have to regulate, get a regulator and bring it back down to 7 WC, I think. Because I'm really missing the effects I get out of that little kiln. So fires a lot faster, but hot aren't. So here's actually, this is the bottom of the foot of this piece. And you can see the clay is pretty, it's oxidized here, reduced over here, really sandy clay body. Oops. Same method of working, make a tube, put a base on it. Then where it's black here, you get the pink flashing. A lot of variation. This piece, much softer feel to it. It's electric fired. Same glaze. Yeah, I think this is the last one. So these are from like about maybe 9 months or a year, well, probably last winter actually. Some hand-built pieces I did around a mold. I'd roll out a slab circle and press mold it, and then take my knuckle and just wipe up the side and texture it that way. So it's again the black glaze, and then Ken graciously shared his white Crackle that I've been playing around a bit with. These again are hikidashi, so it's reduced down here and it's oxidized on top. A shot of the foot of that one. This one had a little blowout here, but I liked it. I filled it from the inside with the black epoxy compound, but it's pretty interesting piece. The blowout was in the firing. I think it got into the glaze or into the kiln when the glaze was still a little too wet. So. No detail of that one. And then again, this is a glaze, but I didn't quench it after I reduced it. So I just kept it silver look. Got the black on top of the white here. And then the silver is on the other side. So I'm kind of moving, I thought I'd show pieces that are T-bowls in concept, but not necessarily in functional form. So when I was invited out to in 2011, I woke up that morning about 4 a.m. to get myself out to the airport. It was March 11th, 2011, and just wanted to check the computer one more time for email, and I got the news about the big earthquake and tsunami in Japan. And of course, the nuclear reactors did their thing and melted down. And so it turned from a natural disaster into an industrial disaster. So I did a series of pieces, I call them the Fukushima series, that I would throw porcelain tubes and then tear them apart and reassemble, and then glaze again with the black glaze. So they have a kind of a real industrial feel. Pretty edgy. And instead of shipping them in wooden boxes, I decided to do a metal to go along with kind of the industrial feel to the pieces. The group shot. So kind of the concept is the fragmentation of people's lives there, and it was, you know, ripped apart by this slash industrial accident. This is a Mizusashi, same idea, with a black lacquered lid. My friend Tony at All About Auto Body does the lacquer work for me. Take him down there and he shoots them. So there's another one. No, this one here, I just got back from Tokyo last summer. It came back from a gallery there. This one was collected. And then kind of as the year or two later, I was following the situation there, and it seemed like people's lives were kind of coming back together, and things were growing in the areas that had been, you know, inundated by the tsunami. So I changed the series up a little bit, and I started just glazing with the black and the white glaze, symbolizing a little bit of a rebirth as far as what was happening there. And again, the pink and orange is just the black glaze flashing onto the white. And these are fired in electric kill, about cone 7. Porcelain again. A little different feel than the earlier ones.
Rob, what do you think is in the black that's volatilizing that flashes?
I think it's iron.
Mm.
You know, there's in that black, there's some iron, and there's a little cobalt and a little chrome, but it's mostly iron.
It's gorgeous.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about these.
What makes the flecks in the white glaze?
That's just the little bubbles in the glaze as it's melting. Probably if I would fire it maybe a little longer, that would all kind of smooth out.
It's better like this. They're different, like they're little, almost like freckles.
Right.
You know, it's really nice.
I mean, a lot of this is just, you know, you fire it up a cone higher, a cone lower, and see what you get, see what you like. So this is, again, T-bowls. These are the really big, chunky, blocky. This piece probably weighs, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 pounds. And it's got some wall thicknesses of maybe a couple inches. And how these came about, I had some clay I was recycling, and the way I recycle like hard block clay is I'll take a dowel rod or a drill and I'll push down and make some holes in it, and then I'll fill it up full of water and let it sit. When I had a small table full of this clay that I'd done that to, and I just put the holes in, put the water, and actually you can see where I'd push down here on the bottom. And of course, this is a dowel rod coming through here. And it sat, and I basically forgot about it. And then I went to open it up, in these blocks had started to fissure apart. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And so I decided to work with that. And since then, I've, on purpose, I've, let things set and kind of until they kind of crack apart. So the process is really driving quite a bit of the form here. And this is just the black glaze, again, put on really thin. And this is Oribe glaze. And then it didn't get heavy reduction here. It just turned it a metallic turquoise. And then the black is just this silvery black. Russell, the pieces you bought, are they black or what are the tonalities? Silver or what's the colors?
No, they're black, black in places, silver in places. This one has a black and red. A black glaze, it looks like it goes red.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's another one. I took a garden spade and I fissured the clay. You can see of course there were the drill marks coming in here from the dowel rod, and I just pushed down with a planting spade and cracked the block apart. So I've got Oribe here that was reduced red, and then the black glaze. I really only have about 6 glazes that I use. This is a quote unquote summer tea bowl. It's probably about 10 by 5 or 6, and then maybe a couple inches thick, 1.5 inches. Again, the green here, and then the Oribe inside turned this red and then this coppery orange. Quite an interesting process. These are some sake cups. I'll just kind of go through these real quick. Russell, you've got a couple of these guys. So here I left it silver, and you got the green on top and the red Oribe reduction. This is Oribe that went really deep, metallic red, copper red. Detail shot.
That's really nice when the Oribe goes red. It's
yeah.
It's kind of unusual, isn't it?
I don't know. Russell, I just fire these things and see how they come out, and to try to manipulate the firing a little, and learn as you go.
Yeah, that's great.
A lot of fun to make. So I thought I'd show a few Mizusashi. This is oxidation fired, again, made from a tube, thick clay that starts out on like a hot dog on a stick, and I roll it. And then once I work my hand in there, I'll stretch it out further and then facet it and then carve out the inside before I put a bottom on. This is the white glaze with the black trailed across it. Cone 7 electric fired. It's kind of like this temperature. It came out almost like sugar cookie dough texture. It's pretty nice texture on it. There's another one, black and white glaze with a lacquer lid. This is like the New Year's 3 stacks of mochi. Sandan mochi, called. This is from last summer. The black Shino again, and this edge was towards the burner. It got this kind of interesting little texture going on. So I try to, paint a bit with the fire and the other elements, or if I'm firing the black and the white glaze, if I stack black glazed pots close to the white, I'll get some flashing. So loading the kill is the real kind of active, thoughtful process for me. Once again, the black Shino. This is Seller's Remorse. This went down to a collector friend in California. I talked to him. I said, Jim, I don't know if I should have sold you that Mizusashi. He says, well, if you want it back, you can buy it back. It's I said, thanks. I like that. So it was a really nice piece. A lot going on.
Is that the black birding through or the black over top of white?
No, it's the white. I leave windows.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's unglazed areas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because like up around the rim, it's really pretty.
Yeah, and the rim is a lot of times when I trim, rather than trim it straight, I'll take a stick and cut like halfway through and tear it.
Mm-hmm.
It gives it a real organic feel. This next piece is a good example of that. This is a piece that I fired like a year ago, and I just kicked around the studio. The lid was warped, and I really didn't know what to do with it. And then I started doing some work with some silver luster that I get out of Japan. It's not platinum or white gold. It's silver. When you fire it, it comes out of the kiln white, and it's tarnished. You have to buff it out to bring it silver, but it's got this really soft, just a wonderful quality. It's not like the palladium or the platinum is really in your face silver, but this has got a totally different feel to it. It's really nice. So I ended up making a lid for this and then doing these silver luster squares. And to me, it's really it's a Seattle piece. It's like a Seattle winter. It just carries that feeling.
Are they clay lids? Then you just have the auto body guy lacquer them?
No, this is actually the earlier ones were lacquered. I've been making these. I just buy some 1/4 inch wood solids and cut them out and shape them that way. And then I rattle can them with this. It's called plutonium deep space black, and it's this wonderful color. And it's not a gloss, but it's not a matte. It's just got a great surface to it. So
those are wooden lids.
Wooden lids, right?
It's nice. I like the contrast.
Yeah, yeah. So then right at the end, I thought I did a show in New York. It was one-man show just about a year ago with some helmets. And I kind of came across the helmet idea. Well, actually I live in the south end of Seattle, and I call them a lot of man trucks down here, and guys would drive these big lifted trucks really aggressively and try to intimidate other drivers. And I just started thinking about that and kind of where we are as a society now, at least the last year or two when I was working on these. And so the helmet became a metaphor for things that I saw happening. And ostensibly the helmet was a means of protection, but of course a clay helmet is going to offer you no protection. But also later on they evolved into ways of intimidating other people, your opponents, things like that. So this is the first one called a power helmet, and actually a collector in England had pointed out, it said, it almost looks like a burqa, which again is another form of power and holding power over somebody. So it's got this aggressive angle, leaning forward. And then Charlottesville rolled around, and we had kind of a black-white issue in type hood helmet. Again, it's the same black and white glazes, and where they meet, you get the pink flashing. This is a Sagger-fired piece. The black glaze again. And the clay I used was, I put some, wedged some K-cob, which is ground up corn cob that they use for bedding for pets. You can buy it at the pet shop. And it fires, so it opens up the clay body. It's like volcanic clay almost. This is another one. This is a little more traditional, I guess, shape-wise, but it's a Chino helmet with a tear. When did I do this? 2019 maybe?
Yeah, that surface is so rich, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. I worked on this show over about like a year and a half. There's another Chino piece that I Sagger fired, then I sandblasted it. Gave it kind of a matte surface. Again, the K-cob, you could see the kind of volcanic and pop outs. These are all coil built, by the way. And this is the orange helmet with lips of gold. Got this kind of really weird fin in the back. And there's the golden lips.
Is that luster or is that an effect from the glaze?
What's that?
Is that luster or is that an effect from the glaze?
Actually, it's epoxy with bronze powder on it. It's a cold finish. Yeah. But we had a leader who had lips of gold and many, many followers. So
oh, go ahead, Rob.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I really like how your handling of the clay and the glaze, translating from your T-bowls to your helmets is amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of the same vocabulary, Paul. It's just, I'm just putting it to use in a different way. But
yeah,
it's
like the flashing around the holes in this helmet. Yeah,
right,
it's just,
that's just it's the white glaze, and then I took a little brush and lined the holes with the black, and they flash out pink. So yeah, this is called silent, and people had their antenna up, were taking a lot in, but for a while no one was really saying a whole lot. So, and this is called Whistling 88. We had someone who was dog whistling, and 88 is the H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. So some of the far right guys would have a sign on, which is 88, which stood for Heil Hitler. So, and it's got this eye on top, which was the eye of the Winchester shotgun shell. This is called Brother. My brother, he passed away suddenly last spring. He was, he was a sweet guy, loved him, but he had delusion. He thought he was sent on Earth to save humanity, and he came up with this new, it was Christian based according to him, but it was this religious dogma that no one in the family could understand. So you've got this text on the side of this helmet that is illegible, and a silver mouth with kind of a crown of thorns effect on top. And this was silver, again, the soft silver luster with, I glazed this shiny with the platinum for the cross.
How did you do the text?
The text actually is, I found this stencil. You can buy stencils. And what I would do is it's like a cloth, plastic, maybe it's plastic. And you put it on the piece, and then I would take underglaze and rub it through like underglaze paste.
Almost like a silk screen.
Yeah, like exactly like a silk screen. And it took quite a while to get all this text on here. None of it's legible. I spent, a day or two maybe laying the text on the piece.
Wow.
Pretty laborious process.
I can imagine.
And I liked it coil built. I mean, it would kind of come and go, and it'd pick up better in some places, and where there's depressions in the clay, it was harder to lay it in there. And I just like the effect. And also the slip is on a red clay, and it's got this kind of strange, very faint pinkish cast to it, which has turned out interesting too. So kind of humanizes it a bit.
How big are these?
There's maybe anywhere from 10 to 12 inches to, like, this one's pretty big, Komuso. This is probably 16, 18 inches tall.
Which one do you like to wear the best?
Like to wear the best? I haven't put any on, Mike.
Well, it's Halloween,
Yeah, I guess so. And this one is called Komuso, which back in the 1300s or so, there was a group of travelers wear these baskets over their heads, and they would play shakuhachi or bamboo flute, and they'd travel around Japan begging that way, and that's how they earned their living and survived. And the shogun got a great idea. He decided, well, I'm just going to let these people travel. And at that time, he would restrict his warlords to their provinces so they couldn't cause him any trouble. So he had these Komuso traveling around Japan, acting as spies to report on what was going on in the hinterlands, the provinces far away. So it was the concept of religion being co-opted for political purposes. That's where they're coming from. And this was multiple firings, and the yellow and white is actually a cold surface, whereas this is a cone 6 bronze glaze with luster on top. This is called Blue Stripe, which I don't know if you've seen it, but down in the south end here, I noticed cars driving around with a stripe of blue painter's tape in the rear window, cars and trucks. And I asked someone, what's that all about? I said, well, it's back to blue, back to police, right? So this came about, another helmet with the blue stripe got a little carried away. Kind of my comment on policing in the 2020, 2021. Hoping for a little more restraint at times. So again, I used the K-cob. You could see the pitting of the clay. And this is a cone 6. That's a side view of it.
Are these also raw glaze like you did some earlier pieces?
No, these are all, Russell, these are all bisque fired and then glazed, yeah. None of the helmets were raw glazed.
Okay.
Raw glazing, I found you need to glaze both the inside and the outside at the same time. Otherwise, it'll blow apart.
Yeah. Yep.
Dennis Parks told me that. Thank you.
Yeah, we did a lot of what we learned a lot from Dennis Parks in school.
Yep.
We followed his books.
Yep.
It was a whole event.
Yep. And there's where it all happens. I got a gas kill, bigger gas kill here and a little one here. I just fired this one yesterday. And during the bomb cyclone firing, it was pretty crazy. I talked to Ken right after I'd finished, and about 2:45, it was just, the wind was roaring, and the wind sounded like there was a jet coming in real low. It was going to crash. I've never heard anything like it, but it wasn't a great day to be firing. But anyway, this is my studio.
How did the pots come out from the bomb cyclone?
It's still cooling. I'm going to open it tomorrow. So.
What do you use for walls? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, on that, it's called Shoseiban. It's burned cedar.
Huh.
So I bought some cedar 1x6 6-footers, and then I stood them up in a tall triangle and put a brick on top to keep the 3 boards all together. And then I took a propane weed burner and lit the fire at the bottom, and fire just roars up like a chimney, and they'll, char the wood in about 3 minutes, and then they're ready to be used. So wow. It's a technique in Japan. They've been using it for years. It fireproofs. Once the wood is burned, it's really hard to catch on fire again. And also it's kind of like nature's pressure treating. The bugs don't like it. It doesn't rot. You can see a burned piece of wood in a stream, and it won't rot. It'll just sit there, preserving it. So, yeah.
So aside from the fire, the wood is completely untreated.
Yeah, it's just regular, cedar, 1x6. And then these stakes are. I grow a lot of vegetables, so I put tomatoes, and I had Japanese squash, and so they grow up the side here and over here too, and I got a little raised bed here, so get a lot of sunlight, help feed the neighborhood. And I think that's about it.
That was a really wonderful presentation there. I'm not, I know a lot of clay artists. I'm not sure I know anyone that works with the material quite the way you do, or quite as much in terms of the way you manipulate your clay. You have, it seems like an array of different clay bodies, but every time you pick up clay, you're probably just throwing something new in it. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, I probably use maybe 3 bodies now, Ken. I use this Oregon brown out of clay art that I doctor up. That's where I did slip work over it. Gives me good color. I got a bedrock down there that I've been doing some of the hikidashi. Yeah, I don't know what else. That's pretty much those 2.
Well, I really appreciate you coming in and giving us this wonderful presentation. And I guess all I can say is thank you.
Thanks everybody for sitting in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome to see your work, Rob.
Thanks, Paul.
It was our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you. Barry, you gave me some clay too that I did some hikidashi with. It turned out pretty nice. Some of that Grogzilla or something, I think it was.
That's from someplace in the Santa Cruz area.
Well, I hope to see you in the class again sometime soon, Barry.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Rob.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, I got to sign off here.
All right.
Okay. Bye, Rob.
Bye, everybody.
So good to see you.
Appreciate it. Yep.
See you, Reed.